JaMarcus Shephard has made it clear that Oregon State's quarterback battle is a battle. It's a true competition. He's not pulling your leg. Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Pac-12, your daily podcast on the Pac-12 Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on in. It's Locked On Pac-12. I'm Christian Rauh. We're hanging out with Ryan Harlan of Beavers Edge. He's the senior sports writer over there, and we got some fun conversations to talk about. On today's episode, JaMarcus Shephard spoke with the media earlier this week. He said some really interesting things about the offensive line, and of course, he talked about the quarterback position, and man, it is fascinating. The things that he said about not just Maalik Murphy, not just Brady Jones, but all three quarterbacks is certainly fascinating, and this is truly a competition. Ryan, before I throw it at you, he talked about every single one of these quarterbacks. He was very, very adamant that this is still an open battle. He says this: I'll tell you what, guys, it's a pretty tight race right now. It's a really tight race, and so I'm looking forward to seeing who emerges over the next week and a half. He wants to give an answer. We're only 18 days away as of this recording, this bonus episode, from Oregon State kicking off their season. This is a crazy battle. What are you hearing?
I mean, this is kind of to be expected. This is what I was kind of saying to you last time around. This is not fully decided yet. That doesn't really have me worried. It's, I think part of the structure of this competition is to make it, a true competition right up until the very end. Even if, say, after their second scrimmage, right, a guy, separates and is the guy out of the three of Maalik Murphy, Brady Jones, or Braden Atkinson, at least still provide that, I think, to everybody of like, this isn't truly decided until that person walks out onto the field week 1 against Houston. Or when we talk to JaMarcus Shephard headed into game week, that he'll mention that as in terms of who ends up being the guy, and we'll see it on the depth chart when they release it to us. But like, that doesn't necessarily shock me either. A lot of them have done really good things, but there's also, I think, not really enough from either one of those three guys yet to basically be the guy in the room and say, hey, look, I'm your guy, and run away with the job either. I think that's just a testament to the guys that they brought in to compete with Maalik Murphy and how they, kind of balance each other out a little bit of just the competition in that room and the level of competition in terms of it's one spot that those three guys are competing for. And they're all thoroughly in the mix. Like, that is the truth of it as of right now. We talked to Mitch Dolan today, and really the biggest thing that we're looking at him from answers from that first scrimmage was just kind of how the quarterbacks look and what more do you need to see out of them. And I think part of that answer is just how they treat this practice. They'll treat it like it's a game week practice, and I think the second scrimmage is going to be a bit more of, where guys separate from each other, because that first scrimmage is a good barometer of the quarterback room. The second scrimmage is probably the closest you're going to get to a true game environment outside of putting on the pads and going to hit somebody else that's not your own team.
Yeah, no doubt about that. When I was hearing these quotes and listening to what JaMarcus Shephard had to say about all three of these quarterbacks, one, he said it's truly a three-man race. It could be anybody's opportunity. But this is me completely speculating. I want to be clear. You were in the room, so let me know if you felt the same vibes or it's completely different. But when he was asked about it, he went right to Brady Jones first. He said Brady Jones over the last couple of days has really taken the leap forward, and now he's just owning the offense in terms of attacking. Then when he went to Maalik, he said Maalik has his moments where he's really, really taking command of the offense. It was short, but he's talking about Maalik. He didn't bring up Braden until he was prompted again. Does that mean anything to you? Is that just interesting, or is that important?
I would say that the way that he laid that out, I wouldn't necessarily say that's really overly telling. I think, because for us as media, we don't have the same view of those team periods that we did, say, from a year ago or 2 years ago. So we can't quite tell. Shephard and the rest of the coaching staff, those players on that roster, know a lot more than we do, just because our view is very, very limited this year. But at the same time, though, I think the biggest thing that people, at least in the Oregon State sphere, need to understand is regardless of the stats that Brady Jones has in his career at Western Michigan and also to Riverside Community College, he's a guy that the coaches are really, really high on. Like Shephard, I think even in that was talking about the fact that he kind of needs to save Brady from himself a little bit because he wants to go throw a block for a teammate, right? Like you don't want your quarterback getting injured, but those little details I think are very, very telling in terms of how they're looking behind the scenes. But also we've also seen too from quarterbacks that look really good in practice, not necessarily translating that out onto the field in a game environment. I don't think that's an issue for either of these quarterbacks. I think I'm just more surprised that there really hasn't been a true head and shoulders separation, because Maalik, I think, brings you a little bit more in terms of just experience and talent from the arm strength alone. But I feel like from what Dahlin told us, it's really who can keep the offense on schedule and put them in the best position to succeed and not, have those self-inflicted mistakes or wounds that ultimately cost you in games, right? Like that ultimately hurt Oregon State last year. That's what I kind of look at it. And Braden, the comments on Braden also too were, he's right there with them in the mix and he's bettering an understanding of the offense. So maybe, you could at least start to see maybe the inklings of a hierarchy being established, but I wouldn't say that there's a true 1A, 1B, 1C quite yet in terms of, or 1, 2, 3 rather, for quarterbacks in that room quite yet. Just because, I think once you start to look for the context and the way that, coaches are talking about each of those players, you're looking for something that maybe might not quite be there yet. And I'm not trying to dance around that and saying like there isn't maybe a hierarchy in there. The coaches know more on that than I do. But at the same time, right, like I don't think we'll truly know until we head into game week against Houston in terms of who comes out with it at the end, because regardless of like what Shep said to us yesterday, I still think it's Maalik's job to lose.
Okay. All right. I like that. I'm interested. I'm curious to see what best case scenario is. Is Maalik Murphy the best case scenario? Because you're obviously going to have some tough go the first couple of games of the season. Obviously, you have some tough competition. Does the younger guy building with your team make more sense? Or do you go to experience? That'll be certainly fun. One thing we did learn from JaMarcus Shephard, though, and I think this is worth noting, that he said when they do name a starting quarterback, they do intend to keep him as quarterback one throughout. So obviously that can change when the season happens, but they said they're going to do everything they can to make sure him the most successful as possible. I thought that was certainly interesting.
Yeah, and that's fair, right? I think, if you're one of those 3 guys in that room that's going to be competing for that spot, you want every opportunity to succeed and feel like the coaching staff is behind you, the players are behind you. And any kind of inkling of doubt, I think, gets a little bit lost in it. But also there is going to be some hurt feelings too, I think, at the same time, because somebody's going to end up, being the starter, and one of the two in that quarterback race is not, and they're going to have to kind of deal with that disappointment and use that as maybe to make a case for things don't look good for whoever starts that first week or first couple of weeks, that they can be slotted in if there needs to be a change. But yeah, I understand where Shepherd's coming from. That doesn't really shock me too much in terms of giving that guy every opportunity to succeed. And I like that mentality from a coach's standpoint, but also too, I think, trust enough to where if a change needs to be made, don't be afraid to make the change. And I think that was lost a little bit, with the coaching staff last year. I don't expect JaMarcus Shephard and the staff to, be apprehensive on it. I think they're going to be really straightforward with it, but give that guy the opportunity to succeed is the right call, right?
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think they'll make the same mistake with this new coaching staff whatsoever. So there's obviously question marks surrounding who will be the quarterback one for week 1 for Oregon State, but it's not the only position worth talking about with Oregon State of figuring things out. The offensive line is still looking for answers. That's what I'm going to get next to right here on Locked On Pac-12. Baseball fans, if you think you know who's hitting a homer today, well, FanDuel's giving you a free chance to call your shot with Daily Dingers. It's easy to play. All you got to do is make your free pick on who you think will hit a home run in their game. And if you're right, you'll receive a profit boost to use on your next bet for a chance at extra winnings. Best of all, you can make a free pick every day throughout the MLB season. There's still a few months to go left in the MLB season, so make sure you check that out. Daily Dingers is another fun way to stay engaged with every day's games, whether you're following your favorite team or keeping an eye on matchups across the league. Every game has someone capable of going deep, and now you get a chance to make your prediction before first pitch. I mean, who would you pick? Would you go for Shohei Ohtani, PCA, Junior Caminero, Yordan Alvarez? There's a ton that you go for. There was just some regulars, or maybe you're feeling lucky on somebody who never gets one, but you think they might just be ready for it. So if you're ready to play your game today, join all the action on FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com to play Daily Dingers. Make your free pick on who's hitting a homer. Play ball and swing for the fences with FanDuel. It's the official partner of the MLB. Hey, there are more live events than ever worth seeing right now. Games, concerts, comedy shows, festivals, the theater, you name it. But the hard part is usually not deciding what you want to attend, but actually getting the tickets. That is the toughest part. Between long wait times, confusing checkout processes, surprise fees, buying tickets can sometimes feel harder than it should, and it shouldn't be. That's why so many fans are turning to Game Time. It's the app that is built to make buying tickets simple. Upfront pricing, seat views before you buy, exclusive saving opportunities that help you get the events you want without the usual hassle. The most annoying thing in the world, other than internet lag, is being able to see the seat that you want to get for a ticket, and then all of a sudden you like a seat, but it's almost double the price at checkout because of hidden fees. You don't have to worry about that with Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets to every type of event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. But again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. All right, welcome back to the show, Locked On Pac-12. Thank you so much for making it your first or second listen of the day. Ryan Harlan of Beavers Edge joins me on today's episode. 18 days away from kickoff, where Jerrell Comer days, the edge, the junior edge of Oregon State, or Jayden Padgett, the freshman wide receiver, days away from Oregon State kicking off their season. Before we get to the offensive line, talking about those two guys right there.
Jerrell Comer, I mean, when he got here, he's been able to fit pretty seamlessly into that edge room pretty quickly. And then Jayden Padgett's had a nice day so far as a freshman. Really, the biggest thing that you want to see out of freshmen in general, regardless like position group, is how do they respond in their first few practices in college, especially college football practices, which are going to be vastly different from high school. But he's a really true big bodied receiver that I think the Beavers have been missing for quite some time since Isaiah Hodgins in 2019. My first year of coming to Oregon State, so I remember that year very, very fondly. Only if the Beavers had a defense that year, maybe they could have gone bowling. We'll never know. We'll play hypotheticals there, but yeah, I like what they bring in terms of to their respective position groups. I think Comer has a better opportunity to be more productive right away. Padgett's just unfortunately buried in a really deep and talented wide receiver.
Okay. All right. Well, final conversation on this bonus episode right here. I want to talk about the offensive line because the O-line's still looking for answers as well. He was asked in his media availability on Monday about do you have a good idea of who is going to be starting on this offensive line? And he says this, quote, I'm not 100% sure on that. We probably got about 8 guys or so that's really showing that they can be out there together. And so you're just mixing and matching in a little bit of every practice to kind of see, hey, who's going to communicate the best with one another. He did also mention that Tyler Bolton will certainly be out there. He made that very clear.
Yeah.
But other than that, he said there's about 8 offensive linemen fighting for the other 4 spots.
Yeah, and it becomes a little more complicated now with Van Wells back in the mix, right? Because I think you were going into this year not planning on having him back. And now that you bring him back and he's started practicing, I think this is his 3rd official practice. I don't know if he participated in the scrimmage quite fully, just because when he started practicing, we saw that Friday right before they scrimmaged for the first time. So that wasn't my general expectation, but I think they'll probably get ramped up for that second scrimmage this coming Saturday. So Van kind of throws a wrench into it a little bit, because just not only from like an experience standpoint, but you planned on Carter Gilliam, the transfer from Louisville, being your starting center this year, right? Like he told us that he'd been repping exclusively at center. So that kind of plays a little bit of musical chairs with who you can, have out there. Tyler Volton starting doesn't shock me. It doesn't surprise me. Nathan Elu's a guy I'd look out for along that offensive line combo in terms of in that mix of 8 guys that, you could mix and match and have a quality starting 5 out there. And then also on top of that, Josiah Timoteo has been repping at left tackle pretty exclusively as well. Van Wells, if, good to go, NCAA, doesn't win their appeal with the whole class of 22 court case, that he's going to be at center. Like, that's just plain and simple for him. But that's just really like, the only like caveat I'd say to that. And then right tackle is still kind of undecided. Like there's some spots where, maybe a few guys could be in the mix for that. I don't really know in terms of like where, guys are at along that offensive line. Tico Schultz from Bethune Cookman, he's a guy that could be in the mix for that right tackle spot. Schultz is a little more undersized, but he's put on 40 pounds of muscle, and he's one of the better communicators out there, which is something that Shep was, looking for in particular. Noah Thomas is another guy that could, potentially be out there. Will Larkins also too could be in that mix within that 8 kind of combo that they're looking for. And I know when you hear that, you get a little worried, a little apprehensive, right? That there are 8 guys that could potentially be vying for those 5 spots, and there might be some rotations and stuff. And I get that. Like, people are, could be rightfully concerned because you don't have a true consistent 5 on there. But Mitch Stalin was even saying today too, like, injuries happen. So you kind of need to go about 8 deep for an offensive line in terms of who's going to be, your 6th man coming in one of those spots. Anybody that, doesn't get, one of those 5 early on in that combo, who's your swing tackle coming off the bench that can, plug and play right away. So there's a lot of things that still need to get decided. I think the Van Wells addition back into the room is very good, really helpful for a position group that had a lot of questions coming into this year. But also it throws a wrench now, I think, too, in terms of the musical chairs aspect and narrowing down a first 5, basically, of who's going to be your starting offensive line from week 1. That's really where the answers, I think, kind of lie. But the guys that I've listed, I think, are going to be right in that mix, potentially to come off the bench and be able to plug and play when injuries should arise.
All right. I'm excited to see how this one actually happens, how this one stands put. I'm excited to hear from JaMarcus Shephard again, because I'm not going to lie, every time he speaks, I feel like I just get excited. And I found out he's a Bills fan too. Ryan Harlan told me he's a Bills fan, so I'm definitely even more big fan of JaMarcus Shephard.
Brick walls are an endangered species here in Corvallis.
That's true. That's true. That is very true. And Ryan Harlan's a Bills fan too, right? Yeah, he is.
No,
don't let him tell you otherwise.
No. Chiefs fan all day.
Yeah, this is when I mute his mic. No doubt about that. All right, folks, make sure you go check out Beavers Edge. Go check out Ryan Harlan, all the great work the staff does over there. They got some crazy news happening over there, so make sure you go check out Beavers Edge. Lots of stuff happening with Oregon State coverage. All right, there, and then come on back. Locked On Pac-12. We got you multiple episodes every single day. Please like the video. Please subscribe. We'll see you back here next time. It's Locked On Pac-12.